They never chose the wing chose them. Coaches saw the raw pace first, not the touch, not the vision, just the speed. In youth academies, school teams, and neighborhood pitches, the fastest kid was always dragged to the touchline. It didn't matter if his passing was rough or if he dreamed of being a striker. Wide players were born out of stopwatch times, not tactical lectures. From the sidelines, you could see the pattern. The ones in the middle were schooled in control, rhythm, responsibility. The ones pushed wide were left to improvise, to learn from YouTube clips, to copy stepovers on cracked concrete, freedom disguised as exile. Walcott once sprinted past grown men at 16, only to be told he was too raw for the center. Valencia left Ecuador as a striker, but in England became a winger because he was fast. These weren't promotions, they were reassignments. At first, though, it looked like liberation. Every stepover felt like rebellion, every sprint like flight. The crowd loved the chaos, and the boy loved the noise. He believed speed meant destiny. What he didn't know was that being quick wasn't a gift, it was a trap. And that's how it begins, not with choice, but with velocity. From the touchline, it always looked like glamour, the winger dancing with the ball, the crowd rising in anticipation. But coaches knew the truth. This was the most expendable role on the pitch. In modern systems, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, the winger isn't just a dribbler, he's a cog in the pressing trap, sprinting to funnel passes into crowded zones, then snapping back to cover his fullback when the trap fails. Analysts track it. An average wide player coughs up possession 8 to 12 dangerous times per game, nearly double what central midfielders do. One misstep here isn't just a lost duel, it's a counterattack slicing through space before the defense has blinked. Managers see it brutally simple. If a winger is sloppy, he comes off. Midfielders get second chances. Center backs get forgiveness. Wingers, they get substituted. Because on the flank, the margin of error is microscopic. You don't just lose the ball, you lose the shape. It's why substitutions almost always start wide. The winger is football's scapegoat, the easy fix when the rhythm breaks. And here's the irony. The position was sold as freedom, but what looks like liberty from the stands is really a leash, thin, invisible, always ready to snap. So when he lines up again, staring at the fullback across from him, the truth hangs heavy. He's not playing for joy anymore. He's playing to avoid becoming the first name on the substitution board. He came on in the 72nd minute, the stadium restless, the match locked in stalemate. The instructions were simple and cruel. Make something happen. No time to ease into rhythm, no margin for hesitation. One dribble, one cross, one spark, that was all he was allowed. From the outside, fans dreamed of the chaos he might create, the way Hazard once shredded defenses, the way Sané ghosted through gaps, or Mahrez carved inside to bend the ball into the far corner. But inside, the reality was suffocating. Freedom, the coaches called it. Yet it was freedom fenced in by shape, by system. Take risks, but only the right ones. Create magic, but never outside the lines. For the young winger, every touch felt like trial. Analysts had the numbers to prove it. A substitute wide player averaged just 8 to 12 touches in 20 minutes, barely half of what a central striker saw in the same span. Every misplaced pass, every failed dribble wasn't just a mistake, it was an indictment. Garnacho knew that feeling, so did Ansu Fati, Jeremy Doku too. All of them were asked to rewrite the script of a 90-minute struggle in a quarter of an hour, to turn raw energy into salvation. They weren't subs, they were auditions. And the cruelest paradox? To play wide was to be told you had freedom, while living under tighter chains than anyone else on the pitch. He jogged back into position after a failed cross, the coach's eyes already flickering toward the bench. In that moment, he understood. Wingers aren't trusted to grow into games. They are only tested against them, and the test never ends because the next whistle doesn't bring relief. It brings the weight of the body. He hit 34 kilometers per hour that night, the kind of burst that made the crowd gasp. 30 sprints in 90 minutes, each one a knife through open grass. From the stands, it looked like electricity. From the medical room, it looked like a countdown. Sports scientists could predict it. Wingers live in extremes. Between 30-50 accelerations per match, each stop-start, each violent change of direction hammering the knees, tightening the hamstrings, tearing at the ankles. Data showed it mercilessly. Wide players suffer hamstring and ankle injuries at nearly double the rate of strikers or center backs. The job isn't just flair, it's controlled self-destruction. Bale's muscles betrayed him again and again. Robin spent months watching from the stands, his calves wrapped, his pace paying a cruel tax. Diaby? A career reduced to a medical file, the promise of brilliance shattered by joints that could not absorb the shock. On the pitch, the winger's art looks like freedom. In reality, it's biomechanics at war with biology. Every sprint is a bet against the body's breaking point. Every cut inside is a roll of loaded dice. And the cruelest irony? Fans cheer the acceleration, never noticing the recovery limps that follow. They don't see the ice baths at midnight, the physio's quiet warnings, the silent prayer before every kickoff that the hamstring holds. Because when the body starts to betray you, the game doesn't slow down, it just moves on. And in that space, between the roar of the sprint and the silence of the treatment table, the real battle begins, the one inside the mind. They once called him the future. Headlines screamed it, fans whispered it, managers dangled the promise, the next big thing. At 17, 18, 19, it felt inevitable. Every touch seemed like prophecy. But the prophecy never lasts. For every star who fulfills it, a dozen burn out in silence. Adnan Januzaj was one of them, paraded as Manchester United's jewel compared to legends before he'd even grown into his frame. Within a few seasons, the chance had faded, the spotlight moved on. His story became a warning, not an inspiration. This is the winger's psychological prison, the knowledge that someone younger, faster, hungrier is always on the horizon. The title of next is not a blessing, it is a shadow. You don't outrun it, you only delay it. And in the modern era, the pressure cuts deeper. A mistimed dribble isn't just forgotten on the pitch, it's clipped, memed, replayed a million times online. A slip becomes a joke. A poor cross becomes a highlight reel of failure. Confidence doesn't just dip, it collapses under the weight of ridicule, so the arc repeats, praised as a prodigy, discarded as a disappointment. Yesterday's rising star becomes today's trivia answer. Fans don't ask, what's next for him? They ask, remember him? And as he scrolls through the social feeds, seeing a teenager score on debut, arms spread wide, sponsors rushing in, he realizes the cruelest truth. The same spotlight that once blinded him has already moved on. But what happens when the lights return? Not for him, but for the younger version wearing his number. That's when he learns the hardest lesson. Hype doesn't fade into nothing. It fades into someone else. And that's why the highs never last. The winger's highlight reel is intoxicating. A blur of step-overs, a cut inside, a curling finish that sends the stadium into frenzy. For a moment it feels eternal. This is brilliance, this is legacy. But football's memory is short, and brilliance without repetition fades into trivia. History splits them in two camps. On one side, Robben, Ribéry, Salah, Son, players who extended their primes not with speed, but with reinvention. Robben's left foot became inevitability. Ribéry's balance made him untouchable. Salah learned to score like a striker. Son mastered movement and finishing with both feet. They turned pace into craft, instinct into longevity. On the other side, Shaqiri, Quaresma, Walcott, all flashes, all fire without fuel. They had the moments, a wonder goal, a viral dribble, a season of promise. But when the sprint dulled, when the hamstrings tightened, when the system shifted, they had nothing left to anchor their game. The result was the same, a fade into rotation, then into memory. The numbers confirm the cruelty. The average winger peaks around 26 or 27. After that, the decline accelerates. Central midfielders might adjust with intelligence, center backs with positioning. Wide men, they're judged on violence of acceleration, and when that goes, everything goes. And so the highlight reel that once looked like prophecy becomes a time capsule. The brilliance wasn't a legacy, it was a snapshot. But here's the cruel punchline. Even the legends know the clock is ticking. Robben retired, Ribéry slowed. Salah will one day feel the weight in his legs, Son too. The position doesn't forgive, it only delays the inevitable. And when the burst dies, what remains is not the roar of the crowd, but the silence of being replaced. The stadium roared as he waved goodbye, one last sprint down the touchline, one last ovation. But the sound faded quickly, swallowed by the ordinary silence of Monday morning. That's the paradox of the winger's life. Brilliance under the lights, invisibility once they go out. Some found ways to resist the fade. Ryan Giggs bent his career inward, reshaping himself from a blistering wide man into a midfield metronome. Di Maria stopped living off speed and became a creator, feeding others rather than burning himself out. James Milner embraced survival by becoming everywhere and everything. Fullback one week, midfielder the next. Adaptation bought them time. Most did not adapt. They drifted downward. Second divisions, contracts in MLS, golf clubs paying for past highlights. Others slipped into coaching, chasing relevance in tactics boards instead of touchlines. For them, football was less a career than a lease, one that expired faster on the wing than anywhere else. Data proves it. The flank is where churn happens quickest, and that's the cruelty. The position demands fireworks, but fireworks by design burn out. Football remembers its Robins, Ribéry's, Salahs. The rest are reduced to faint echoes, recalled only when someone scrolls through an old video game squad and mutters, "Oh yeah, he was quick." But perhaps that isn't the end, because every so often, one of those forgotten names resurfaces, not as a superstar, but as a coach on the sideline, a mentor in the academy, or a veteran grinding out minutes in a smaller league. Not legends, not ghosts, something in between. And that's the final irony. The winger's light doesn't always vanish. Sometimes it flickers back in places no one is watching.